Alright, welcome to the case study of Nimrod. This is a brand new series that I honestly have been wanting to make for a while because I love studying how characters kind of rise and become super meta and then fall because of certain reasons that are honestly out of their control. So yeah, this is the first episode of the case study series, and what better way to start it than with Nimrod. Now, before we get into this, quick disclaimer, I know that this is just my opinion, right? My opinion on the state of Nimrod in the Battlerealm, it's not gonna be one that everyone agrees with, right? People might still think that Nimrod is Nimgod, and fair enough, right? That's just, we all think differently, right? But this is just based off of my observations, off of my studying of Nimrod's performance, especially in 2024. But let's not talk about the future right now. Let's talk about the past. And to talk about it, we have to journey to it. So let's go over some gameplay of older Act content, for example right here, Act 8 Chapter 3. And you're going to see that Nimrod is just incredible for it, right? Because this was a time where Nimrod was still kind of at his peak. And you can obviously tell, right? He is doing these fights very, very fast. He destroyed that Kitty Pryde prior to this. And this I-Bomb, which by the way, isn't even his ideal matchup because, Nimrod is kind of based around just being the mutant, the mutant slayer. And any non-mutant champion is pretty much viewed as an ideal matchup, if that makes sense. But he still takes those pretty well, especially if the node is a tech node that really benefits Nimrod. But yeah, here we have a mutant champion, and you can obviously tell that, mutant characters he just destroys in 1 SP2, even with these 8.3 health pools. But yeah, here I dropped the SP2, and look at this damage output. It is just insane stuff. And yeah, go back in, drop the relic, and this should do it. Now, another disclaimer, this is from the content creator beta, and this is an ascended Mcoc Nimrod. So a fully decked out Nimrod. I know that he is, a pretty good ascension, but I'll have to talk about that in a different section of this video because I have to save that for I have to save that for later. But yeah, here we have this regen node. Now Nimrod is a very good champion when it comes to stopping regen. Now he doesn't do it in the normal tech way, however, because usually tech characters have a heal block, right? Lady Deathstrike, for example, or Warlock, who is one of the best, actually I think he's just the best heal block champion in the game because the infection passive is something that is just absolutely unreal. But Nimrod, he doesn't have heal block, he has heal removal. So if it's a regen or a regen buff, he will just get rid of it, and that has its pros obviously. If there's a champion that is heal block immune, Nimrod's gonna still destroy them, right? But if it's a healing that isn't coming from a regen buff or passive, that's where Nimrod starts to struggle a bit. But that's fine, right? Because I feel the most common thing is those regen buffs and passives. So yeah, that's why I feel Nimrod's way of controlling regen is still very, very valid. But yeah, here I dropped the SP2, some incredible damage output there. And yeah, this matchup is looking pretty good for being a non-mutant matchup. Just gotta get some parries going. Nimrod's playstyle, I guess I do appreciate how simple it is, but just parrying all the time, sometimes it is a bit boring, but hey, at least the payoff is worth it, right? Because, look at that SP2. But that was another 50-second fight, not too shabby in the slightest, because Nimrod's ideal health, his ideal health pools are the Battlegrounds type of health pools, right? That. Okay, well I guess it's a bit different now because Battlegrounds in 2024, those health pools, they're changing. They're definitely changing, and in about 4 days from now, it's gonna change even more. And we'll talk about this in the given section, but I'll just give a quick preview, I guess. That's kind of a reason why Nimrod is starting to struggle a bit, right? But yeah, in due time we'll talk about why Nimrod is kind of in danger. I'll set a timestamp like at the beginning of the video so you can just see like, you know, like what when I talk about that. And yeah, but for now we still gotta enjoy this gameplay. He is just crushing all these tech paths, right? This is this never back down node. Now here's where the heal removal kind of, you know, backfires on him, because you get like bonus furies with this node if you have a heal block on them and they try to gain health. You don't get any furies if you just remove the healing, right? So that's like where it does kind of stink for Nimrod. However, you know, his damage output is so good against mutant characters that he doesn't necessarily need the furies anyway, because he's doing just fine right now, right? Like, this damage output's honestly pretty sweet. And yeah, Namor here is already like down halfway, and we're just getting started. Now, I could have gone for the SP1 into the SP2 just to, like, you know, get that beefy SP2, but I just kind of prefer the SP2 like always. I know like in Battlegrounds especially, you have to do that first SP1 now, but I think Nimrod's still doing fine. And yeah, one more SP2 and he just gets sent to the Shadow Realm. Very, very fun fight there. Now we have this Red Guardian, you know, a non-mutant matchup. Let's see how he does against it. Spoiler alert, he does just fine. So yeah, the game plan here, just parry as per usual, get our SP2, and then that should just be game over. And if the healing activates, just nullify it. Well, not nullify it, but remove it. Yeah, it's not a nullify, right? Because it takes off like passives as well. Yeah, so yeah, it's not a nullify, it can't be. But yeah, here we go for the SP2. We're at like, no, we're gonna go for the parries actually, because when I play Nimrod, I don't like dropping the SP2 unless I have the 10 charges, because I want to get like that double extinction and what is it? What's the other one? Oh yeah, it's Blitz and Titan Protocol. When they combine, it's like Extinction Protocol, I'm pretty sure. And yeah, that's like the really overpowered one, because you get like all the benefits of Nimrod, which is pretty sweet. And yeah, here we go for the regen nullify again. Just very, very good at countering that, because you just have to make contact with the opponent. That's it. Like, just literally tap their block and the regen is gone. That is so overpowered. And yeah, here I dropped the SP2, some pretty amazing damage there, and that was like, what, a minute and something, which is not too bad in the slightest. Now we have this Jubilee matchup, and this one's an interesting one. And this, like, it kind of showed me that Nimrod wasn't always perfect for every mutant champion, like, you know, up until 2024 where like the problems actually started. But Nimrod isn't the best for Jubilee, right? But then again, Jubilee, she's not really like a problem for any champion really. It's just that she has a lot of base energy res. Now, that one line, the base energy res, that comes into play big time in 2024 because of a little thing called stat focus. But we'll get to that when it's time to talk about it. But there's a little hint on like another reason why Nimrod is kind of in danger. But yeah, stat focus, it's a bit more serious than it sounds, right? And yeah, here she drops the SP2, no big deal, and this fight is now over. Pretty fun one, pretty simple one, and like what, still like a minute or something. Pretty good stuff. Now we have this Wolverine fight, and this one's a bit interesting because Nimrod has been always, you know, like, it's been known that Nimrod is known for like parrying, right? Like, you want to always just parry with him, you want to just get those armor ups that way. However, fun fact about Nimrod, if there's like regen that the opponent has or prowess, he does not need to parry at all. Like, he can still get to his extinction protocol without having to do a single parry because the regens just like manually build him up. So yeah, that's honestly pretty sweet. However, you still have to parry to get armor up, so like you do lose out on some attack rating, because I know that I believe the Blitz protocol is all about like having armor ups to like match your attack rating or like give you, you know, more attack rating based on armor up. But he's still doing fine right now. Like, here I go for the relic into the SB2 in a second, and yeah, very good damage, remove the regens, and we are chilling. By the way, that damage output was capped because the rage node is literally insane. I'll say it till the end of time, but like, what the heck even is that node, man? Like, it even caps DOT. I've never seen that ever. Like, not even with Safeguard, right? And Safeguard caps all damage at 1%. It doesn't cap DOT, but Rage is just insane, and it like caps DOT even. It even caps like Gallon's Harvest, which is just unreal. But yeah, Nimrod also caps his shock, unfortunately. However, his shock is still doing very, very good numbers regardless. Yeah, here we dropped the SP2, and he's already down halfway after just one single SP2. Pretty good stuff here. We have our not Blitz protocol, we have our Extinction protocol ready. Is it even called that? I really don't know. I swear it's called Extinction Protocol and like it's combined, but maybe I'm wrong. I don't really know. But here I dropped the SP2, and it does obviously less damage, right? Because like 0 armor up, so we can't parry at all, but it's still doing enough. And, you know, this is like one downside of Nimrod, I guess. Of course, like when there aren't any regens to take advantage of, you can't really get going with Nimrod. So like any unblockable that stops him from parrying, it does mess him up a bit for sure. But here we have this X23 where the regen does save us here, and it does give us like those extra charges that help us stay in that Extinction protocol. So yeah, this is why he's so good for mutant characters, right? Because mutant characters usually fuel him, and that gives him like, you know, the ability to bypass like any unblockable because he just doesn't care about it at that point. But yeah, that's why he's a mutant slayer, right? Like that's why he's known for these mutant fights, because he just works perfectly for them. But here I dropped the SP2, and yeah, look at this damage output. One SP2 already down to like 33% health. It's honestly just a bit silly, right? But yeah, here I go back in. I just bait out the SP1 if she wants to drop it. That was dangerous. That was a very dangerous maneuver by me, but it's okay because we go in, do a combo, we switch the mode to Blitz Protocol, and then there we go. One SP2 and the fight is over. A very, very fun one there. But here we have this, I believe, 8.3 lane, and this one is crazy because this has like Nimrod's favorite matchups. If they have prowess or regen, he's gonna destroy it, right? Sauron has both. So yeah, Sauron is gonna be made an absolute joke in this like quest. So yeah, we're gonna get our orange mode up, and that means that we can just remove any prowess or regen, and like I said, Sauron has both, so yeah, the shocks are gonna stack up big time. But yeah, here I drop a heavy attack, and then here I drop my SP2 in a second. Do I do that? I think I do it. Yeah, here we go. And look at this damage output. So what's going on here is, because of a node, the attack rating of Nimrod is just getting supercharged, because whenever he drops a special attack, it converts any armor up into extra attack rating. So that SP2 with like 6 or 8 armor ups, which Nimrod can get pretty easily versus those mutant characters, it's gonna do some wild numbers, right? And like even against this Karnak right here that isn't a mutant character, so you can't build as many armor ups, he still does very, very good. And yeah, Karnak just has that wild reaction time, and he blocks that instantly, which is insane, but I guess it's fine. But yeah, here I go for a striker in a second, then I drop the heavy attack, and it is now go time. And yeah, check out this damage output. Drop the SP2, and yeah, some nice crits there, some nice shock damage, and that's essentially it. Very, very clean matchup for sure. And now we have this Omega Red as well. Omega Red, how he works is, if the opponent is a robot, his spores, you know, they take a lot longer to apply onto the opponent, and Nimrod is of course a robot. He's like the king of the robots, right? No, he's the king of the Sentinels. I think like he's not the king of the robots, but like, you know, he's a king of one type of robot, which is pretty cool. But yeah, here I drop a heavy attack to get that protection down, and yeah, it's time for the SP2, and look at this absolute thing of beauty. And there are the path fights for this video. Now it's time for the section of this video where it is just purely discussion, purely yapping, if you will, from me. And here is part 1 of like the 2 discussions, and this is the past, which is the domination of Nimrod. Now, I have 2 key points that I want to talk about here. The first key point is the at the time mutant defenders when Nimrod was released, and then part 2, the uniqueness of Nimrod's kit. So, key point 1. Let's talk about the defenders of the mutant class at the time Nimrod was released, and like the time a little bit afterwards as well. So at this time, it was mainly like prowess heavy characters that just really punish you if you couldn't like try to get rid of their prowess, right? And an example of this is of course Kitty Pryde, who came out with Nimrod in, I think it was, when was that actually? September of 2021? This guy's kind of old, to be honest. But when Kitty Pryde like came out, she was already a pretty like big defensive menace, right? Because if you like got her prowess up, if you try to intercept her, it would just end badly, and she could like incinerate you through block. It was just all pretty dang terrible, right? But then in came Nimrod, who was the perfect counter to Kitty Pryde. And Kabam usually like, you know, drops a defender and then their counter like a few months afterwards, right? We've seen that a few times already, but with Nimrod, it was like, no, you get the counter immediately. But not only that, this champion is going to counter the defenders that we're going to release in a few months from now as well. And let's go to those few months from now, and that is Toad and Sauron. Now, what does Toad do? Toad has access to a ton of regen, and that regen is like very, very potent as well, and he also has access to prowess, and once he built up enough prowess, he would just straight up stun you, right? And that, you know, stun is of course very lethal on defense. Now, additionally, he inflicted a ton of poisons, so if you didn't have a poison immune champion, you were pretty much screwed. Now, what does Nimrod have? Nimrod has access to poison immunity, and he removes all sorts of regen and prowess. So Toad, when he came out, was already just straight up hard countered by a character that came out a few months prior. We don't really see that too much like anymore in 2024, and I feel like you can blame Nimrod for that, because when you try to sell a defender like Kabam does, if the counter is like already a very, very well-known character, how are you gonna sell any like version of that defender, right? Because like the counter people already have because he was out for a few months already, and it's like, okay, like what can we do? This character just won't do anything for us, right? And that was the case because Nimrod was just, you know, hard countering Toad right from the start. And it was the same exact case for Sauron, who, you know, has potential on defense. It's just that like Nimrod gave him zero chance whatsoever. So what does Sauron do? Sauron also gains prowess, he gains regen as well, same exact thing as Toad, and yeah, for that reason, he also was just completely hard countered by Nimrod. Now, these two defenders, they tried their best, but it was all for nothing because, yeah, Nimrod just destroyed them, right? And additionally, let's talk about the older defenders as well, like not just from 2021 to like 2022. Let's talk about the defenders from like, 2020 and before. So, for the mutant class, it was like there was a few of them. For example, Havoc was a pretty good one, and you know, Nimrod isn't even that good for Havoc, right? He does have armor ups and power drain, but that Havoc energy res is honestly just a bit too much for Nimrod to handle, and like right now especially, he just cannot handle it at all, and I'll explain why later. But there was also like Mr. Sinister, who was just hard countered by Nimrod because of his like regen removal and like his, you know, shock damage that ignored his regen in the first place. There's also the big one, the biggest one. Actually, before that, let's talk about Bishop. You know, Bishop, the only champion that could like stop Nimrod in his tracks, which is insane. Like how there was only one mutant character, one single mutant character that could actually do something against Nimrod, and it's Bishop. And you know, that's why Bishop is just like a timeless champion as well, because so many tech characters came out that like just stopped the mutant class, but he was still a threat, which is honestly insane. But yeah, the main character here is of course Domino. Now, when Nimrod came out, 7 stars weren't a thing, and 7 stars are a main topic of like the fall of Nimrod. So let's talk about 6-star Domino for now. This girl got destroyed by Nimrod as a 6-star. It was just insane. He was by far the best counter because we'll talk about like why he was the best counter in a bit, but yeah, basically he just hard countered everything about Domino, and countering the best mutant defender in the game, countering like the future mutant defenders as well, without even knowing about it yet, which is like wild. Like, this man was just made to counter the entire mutant class. And why is that? Well, that brings us to key point number 2, which is the uniqueness of Nimrod's kit. This man has done things that before him no one else has done, right? I've never seen a champion like straight up remove regen and prowess like he does, and that pretty much solidified him as like the best tech character in the game. Because yeah, that was just so insane for like all the best mutant defenders, right? And it still is like really, really good to have as well. And not only that, he was immune to ability accuracy reduction, so countering Domino straight up because of that, countering Magneto as well, and having that very crazy ability where like armor breaks do nothing to him, which not only gave him like some extra utility, but it made him a good defensive character as well, which means he wasn't just a mutant like destroyer, he was also a good dual threat champion. Now, all these things combined, and you have one of the craziest tech additions in the game. And even in like 2024, champions have tried to replicate what Nimrod does, but they don't do it as good as Nimrod did. And that's why he was still like the king for the longest time. For example, Omega Sentinel has also like prowess removal, has like heal block and everything, still doesn't do it as good as Nimrod, in my opinion at least. Like, the things that Nimrod did, like utility wise, or like still does to this day, just gave him like the biggest monopoly over the mutant class, and like that's why he was like the most dominant tech character for such a long time. Like in Battlegrounds and Alliance War and questing especially, this man just really did it all. So yeah, Nimrod, he's just a beast, right? Like, he is just crazy good for those old mutant defenders. And our next step here is to go over some like some more important fights, like some more boss fights and stuff like that, just to get ourselves built up for the big discussion about the future of Nimrod. So now we have some boss action here. We have Eternity of Pain, we have this Dormammu fight, and this Dormammu fight's a pretty interesting one because yeah, I'm gonna utilize Nimrod's power drain here. I don't do it like that well, but I tried at least. Okay, that's all that matters. But yeah, we're gonna drop the SP2 here, and it does some very good damage as expected. But yeah, now with Dormammu here, he's gonna drop the SP1, and that gives us a power drain. Well, it gives him a power drain, sorry. So that means that he won't throw as many SP1s, so Footloose won't trigger as often, which is good for us because yeah, Footloose is definitely thwarting us for sure. But yeah, here I drop the heavy attack, it misses, which is fantastic, but here I drop it again, there it connects thankfully, and yeah, now we're in Extinction Protocol, so our damage output is looking very, very solid right now. The degen is also just super clutch, and yeah, he is being a bit stingy, but it is what it is. He is just not dropping the special attack, and he still isn't doing it, so that's just amazing. There he finally drops it, and yeah, now I'm cornered, which is pretty scary, but the power drain is still doing some work thankfully. Here I think I get hit. Yeah, I do. It is what it is. He is just not playing ball right now. Here I go in for the SP2 in a second, and yeah, this fight hasn't been good so far, but we're still utilizing the power drain at least, and the power drain honestly is some pretty good utility. Like, I didn't mention it in the previous discussion because I was more focused on like talking about his just straight up mutant countering abilities, but yeah, honestly, like this ability right here is still very, very good, and it got me the solo, so I'll take it. Was it clean? Absolutely not, but then again, this was a very unideal Nimrod matchup because that was like a non-mutant character, and it's just not a fight that you would like, ever give to Nimrod. So yeah, that was just like a bit silly, just a bit of an extra one there. But here we have this Crossbones boss, and this one is like a good showing of Nimrod's immunities. Of course, I covered this like before with like, countering Toad and stuff, but yeah, Nimrod is a robot, so he is bleed and poison immune. I think it's just that. I guess he's also kind of immune to armor break. Like, the effect still shows, but it just has 0 potency, which is, insane obviously. But yeah, here's an example though of Nimrod kind of like getting screwed by his ability to like, remove regen but not like full on heal block it, right? Because this node, it's called Vital Strikes, I'm pretty sure. Vital Strikes, what it does is whenever Crossbones hits your block, he regens like a portion of the damage dealt. Now, Warlock, or someone that can heal block, has the ability to ensure that Crossbones just never heals. But with Nimrod, since his way of countering healing is a bit different, it actually doesn't bypass this node. So yeah, like, there's one con of Nimrod's like regen removal not being a heal block, but it's honestly fine. He still does really good in most situations, so it's not the biggest issue. And this one's a bit of a slow fight because you can't really build up your armor ups in this matchup because of Crossbones' ability accuracy reduction. And this kind of like does show me how Nimrod was purely designed to counter mutant characters, right? Because if he wasn't designed for just mutant characters, he would have that ability accuracy reduction immunity to like every class, not just the mutant class, right? Like, for example, Shuri does have that for every single class and not just the mutant class, and that's why she is so broken for like a whole lot of different things, right? But for it like just being mutant characters for Nimrod, that's like it's a good example of like what they were trying to do with this champion, which is just, kind of just ruin the mutant class, which, hey, it worked, right? The mutant class has been ruined for a while now, and it's just barely finding its footing again, and it's all Nimrod's fault. Which, you know what, I don't think he cares, because like he hates the mutant class, like in the comics and stuff as well. This man honestly was probably happy to hear that. But yeah, here I go for the SP2 again. It does some pretty nice damage, and it's just hard to get any damage going here because of the no armor ups and stuff, but just the fact that he can still do this fight is honestly really nice. And I feel like in a video like this, I should do some fights where Nimrod is outside of his comfort zone. Like, I could just show like an hour of just him destroying mutant characters. We've seen that already, right? We've seen that all the time, but you haven't really seen like this matchup with him, right? Where like he is, going up against someone that, isn't really meant for Nimrod to take, because he like has ways of bypassing his armor ups and stuff. So yeah, he did a pretty good job here regardless. It was a bit on the longer side, but that's because this guy has like, what, 900,000 health. He is a beefy boy, and yeah, it is what it is. Here we have this Attuma boss, and this one's pretty interesting because you can't parry Attuma as well. Like, I go for it here, and yeah, that's what happens. It gets purified and you kind of get screwed. However, I want to point out that I got the 3 concussions here with Attuma. What are the odds of that? Just, yeah, I got screwed there. It's a 5% chance, by the way. It's a 5% chance of that happening. But now I have to wait it out for like a little bit. I'm taking some pretty annoying block damage, but thankfully Nimrod is somewhat tanky with the armor ups, but also not really. He's an odd character, right? Like, he's a large champion, but like his health pool doesn't really seem all that, and his like stats and everything aren't like super crazy overpowered, except against mutant characters. So like, you stack up those armor ups, you stack up like that resistance, and you pretty much take like 0 damage. It's honestly crazy stuff. And this Attuma here has shock vulnerability. There I get hit. It is what it is. I have to regroup now. It hasn't been like the best set of matches for me right now, but he's still getting the job done, and that's like all what matters, right? Nimrod, just a pretty reliable champion even outside of those mutant matchups. But yeah, here we go for an SP2 in a second, and we get the parry there, thankfully. That's a bit like hard to manage, but it is what it is. We now have our Extinction Protocol, and this damage output is honestly pretty dang spicy. There we go for the parry again, just get that bonus armor up for like the extra attack rating, and we're looking pretty good right now. Here we do it another time, which is perfect. And yeah, we're back into, what is it, Titan Protocol, but now we go into Blitz Protocol here. Then I drop the SP2, and yeah, this matchup is now over, essentially. That was a pretty clean one. That's a lie. We just got the job done, and that's all that matters, really. That was like, what, sub 2 minutes, though, which is pretty sweet. And here we have some mutant bosses now. We're going to go back into Nimrod's comfort zone, and here we have this Kitty Pryde boss. This one is, you know, insane, right? This has aggression prowess, which is perfect for Nimrod. This also has, you know, Kitty Pryde as a defender, so very, very perfect for Nimrod. And yeah, he just destroys this fight. It is honestly just a bit unreal. We're gonna just, you know, play it chill for a second. She has her phase up, but that's fine. Here I go in, drop the SP2, and look at this damage output. Unreal, just simply unreal. And here she's gonna drop the SP1, no big deal, get the parry, we're chilling, invalidate the prowess as per usual. And yeah, the cowardice also like being pretty clutch for this fight for sure. And here I drop another SP2, and this finally does it. And that was just such a different like change of environment, right? Like that was like night and day, I feel like, from like the other fights, because Nimrod, he's in his comfort zone now, and when he's in his comfort zone, he is one of the most dominant characters in the game for sure. It's just like the issue is when he's outside of it, you can definitely tell that there is like some struggles there. But he still does pretty fine for the most part in, like, you know, non-ideal matchups. Here we have this Deadpool X-Force boss, and I'm just missing every single parry, which is not a good start, but it is what it is. Here I get that regen removal, and we're looking pretty good right now. Here I just have to bail out the SP1, but guess what happens? He does not throw it, so that is just very, very fun. There he finally throws it, I get the parry, thankfully, and yeah, we're looking kind of good now. The regen is honestly pretty massive, so I'm like, you know, pretty much doing nothing to him right now. Like, I'm just healing him if anything. But once I get the first SP2 off, it is showtime, and it's time to like play serious. But he's not letting me do that because he's being a bit of a jerk right now, but it is what it is. There I get the parry, but it didn't really matter because we were in the Blitz protocol. Here I get another parry going, and then here I finally drop the SP2. Do I? I guess not. I should drop it pretty soon, but yeah, here I finally drop it. And yeah, the damage output, like I was saying, is gonna be really, really insane. And I was right. It is very, very insane. That was like half of a boss's health pool just down the drain. Insane stuff, really. There I get the parry, and we're just looking really, really good right now. We have so many armor ups built up, so I have to cash in here. And look at this damage output. Simply unreal. Just simply like amazing stuff. And like, even with this Deadpool X-Force having a ton of health, he is just getting destroyed right now. Here I do kind of mess up though. I push him to 2 bars of power. He drops it instantly because of course he drops it instantly. He wants to get those taunts on me and it works, right? But I have to wait those out now, which is annoying. I can just parry though, so I'm kind of chilling. Just like parry, build up to that massive SP2 again, and then drop it when the taunts are off. And then the game's just won at that point, right? And yeah, like I was saying, game over. Just simple as that. Now we have, let's see what we have here. We have this Mr. Sinister boss. This one's a pretty cool one because it has Vigorous Assault, but it also has Arc Overload, right? But once I get this combo going into my Blitz protocol, it's removed. The regen is now gone, we are just chilling. And that is honestly insane how like one single combo, not only that, one single touch, right, from Nimrod, and the regen is just gone. Like that's honestly unreal. Like that feels so broken at times because like so many regen nodes are just super annoying, and Nimrod's just here like being the best counter to them, to be honest. I mean, besides Warlock, but Warlock is a whole different case study, which I'll do in a bit, because yeah, that one's a fascinating one. But here he drops GSP1. no big deal. We're just chilling. We get the regen removal going, and yeah, this fight is just a really, really fun one. It's just so much shock, so much damage output. It's just a real thing of beauty. And yeah, the unblockable is back up, but then it's gone again. Who would have thunk it? And he drops a heavy attack. That just completely missed me. Here I drop another SP2, and I time it perfectly because check this out. Regen up, regen down, and yeah, such a fun time. I love this character. He's honestly such a beast. We go back in though, drop a combo into the SP2 in a second. Regen's back up. It's gone again though. Who would have thunk it? And yeah, such a fun fight. And I believe we have one more boss fight in this video, and yes, it is this null boss. This is just like peak randomness. It's just showing that, hey, even like the worst matchup, literally worst matchup for Nimrod, he still can do it, right? It's a bit ugly, obviously, but it still gets done, right? This of course is null, and what null does is on his like medium attacks, he has a chance to remove an armor up, and with Nimrod, he wants those armor ups, right? He kind of like has to have them to function. Of course, he can like live without some of them, but if they all get removed, it is just not a fun time when it comes to damage output. But yeah, here I dropped the SP2, and you know, it does okay damage. Like it gets the job done. Just like slowly but surely, he'll just chip away at null here. But yeah, he drops a heavy attack. That's fine. And yeah, he drops another SP2. We get that damage going. We get the Furies from Retaliate. And yeah, like the damage output now is kind of decent. Nothing like too crazy, but hey, it works. It's doing its job. Here he drops a heavy attack again. That's fine. And you know, you're gonna notice that something starts to happen, and I didn't realize it was happening until like I saw it, and I was like, oh shoot, that's not good. But yeah, here I dropped the SP2. We're in Extinction Protocol. The damage output was fantastic right there, and you know, when I look at this, I'm just thinking, okay, one more SP2, right? That's it. Yeah, about that. So as you can see, Null is building up these passives on me called Darkness passives. And I didn't notice that the Darkness passives were like this potent, and I didn't realize that I had like what 5 of them on me at this point. And I was like, okay, I noticed something a bit silly here. Where is my power gain? I was like, where is my power gain, right? And I was like, am I just not gonna gain my final SP2? And like I knew at this point, like one more SP2 and the fight's just done. I was well aware of that, and I was like, okay, we just got to get to that, right? And then we're like home free. No, we're not, because I can't ever get to it because we have like what 8 built up now, which means our power rate is kind of just completely done for. So yeah, that's pretty annoying, right? Just I'm trying to get like any damage here. I'm not getting the damage because we don't have any of our stuff, but yeah, he's still like managing it somehow. It's still a very like sketchy fight, and we go in here. I'm like, okay, let me just drop the relic into the SP1, and if this doesn't do it, then it is what it is. But thankfully it does do it, and yeah, there are the boss fights done. But it is time for the part that we were kind of all dreading, right? The Uncertainty of Nimrod. Now, 2 key points here. First key point, the new mutant defenders that are pretty much like taking over this game right now. And the other key point, which is the addition of 7-star characters. So, first key point, new mutant defenders. Let's talk about them. So there's 2 so far that are just on my radar immediately. The first one is Onslaught, and the second one is Dust. Now, why are these champions important right now? I'll tell you why. They both are pretty much hard counters to Nimrod. Like, they don't counter him like on attack, right? They counter him by making sure that he does literally nothing to them. Here's how they do it. First of all, Onslaught has 0 prowess. He has no access to prowess. He just simply has Daunted. And that Daunted mechanic, that honestly does scare me for Nimrod, because if Kabam wanted to, they could just fully shift the mutant class from prowess to Daunted and Nimrod can't do anything about it. He can't stop Daunted, right? He can only stop Prowess. He can only stop like regen as well, but if they just make mutant characters that don't rely on that, then you just have Nimrod that cannot handle the future of the mutant class. For example, Dust as well. She does have prowess, yes, but she is also straight up shock immune. And if they like put a focus on shock immunity or shock resistance or anything like that, then that's where Nimrod is going to start to struggle even more. But I think the important part is you can't just like add shock immunity to like any champion. Like, there has to be like at least some reason for it, like some lore reason or something. But if that just doesn't work, you can always just go with like the Daunted route and make sure that like the Daunted is the way to stop Nimrod. So they built a very strong kit with Nimrod where like he counters pretty much everything about the mutant class, but he only countered the stuff that was like dominant at his time, right? He wasn't future-proofed completely. He was just temporarily future-proofed, right? He was future-proofed for about like 2022 and like some of 2023, but now in 2024, the new direction is just trying to make sure that Nimrod can't take the new mutant characters. And hey, so far so good, right? Dust is a very good defender that, is a problem for a lot of characters, including Nimrod. Onslaught is one of the newest defensive like powerhouses that Nimrod cannot do a single thing to, and that might just be a trend. There is a mutant champion coming in May, and hey, if they have like shock immunity, if they aren't prowess reliant, if they're like a defender that just builds around Daunted or something, this will just further the like Nimrod. It would just make me even more worried for Nimrod, right? And one more thing to talk about here is of course the 7 stars. So with Nimrod, I feel like one of the best ways to stop him is to just keep him as a 6-star, right? Because if there's like a 7-star Nimrod, that'll just be insane because he can actually match the power level of a rank 3 7-star Domino, for example. Here's another thing like with 7-star characters. It's not just challenger rating, it's not just like the boosted stats, right? Like for example, a rank 5 Ascended Nimrod versus a 7-star rank 3 Domino, that's already just like not a fun matchup, right? It'll take some extra SP2s, it won't be pretty, it'll just be like a pretty long fight, I feel like. Here's the other thing that really puts Nimrod in jeopardy, and it's stat focus. When you put the energy res stat focus on a rank 3 Domino and you try to Nimrod that, it's just not going to feel the same, right? It's not going to feel the same as taking like a 6-star Domino because you have like such a major disadvantage now, and because of that, you pretty much just like never see Nimrod in the the high celestial battlegrounds decks because there's kind of just no reason to include him because he just kind of gets thwarted big time by energy res stat focuses and by just the new mutant 2024 defenders. So like as it stands right now, I'm not really seeing Nimrod because there just isn't really a reason to have Nimrod around. And if Kabam like keeps on putting mutants like that are just either shock immune or like have no prowess or anything, then yeah, that trend will just continue, and as time goes on, Nimrod just keeps on losing value while the other tech characters like actually like hard counter, for example Onslaught or something. And of course, Nimrod can still do like matchups pretty fine. Like for example, if you're like a newer player and you still have like a 6-star Nimrod, he's still gonna do good things for you, right? He's still good in like the early like act content and everything. It's just that like outside of that stuff, as like you progress your roster, you're gonna realize that like, hey, these new mutant characters that I have now coming across, he is not really good for them, and I'm gonna have to find some other tech characters that actually handle them pretty well. For example, Shocker, right? And like that's just the reason why I feel like Nimrod is losing value. And while the fault isn't like completely there yet, well, I feel like he is still like just slowly but surely getting down like that hill of like relevancy. I think it is going to come sooner rather than later, and as it stands right now, I think I am a bit worried for Nimrod's future, but only time will tell. Maybe like they just pivot and they start releasing like mutant defenders that Nimrod can actually take this time around. We'll have to see. I guess the biggest test is in May with like that new mutant character coming out. But yeah, I want to hear your thoughts on this, right? I want to see if you like agree with me and like you think that Nimrod is kind of in danger as it stands. But this is gonna do it for the first case study. You know, Nimrod, a very fun one, a very interesting one, because you can tell that Kabam doesn't want Nimrod to like be meta relevant anymore. And you know, he had a good run, obviously, like from 2021 to 2023 he was just destroying everything, right? He was such like, he was a prominent figure in Battlegrounds. He was destroying like Saurons, Toads, Dominos. Like, he was just crushing everything. And you know, it was like that for a long time, and I feel like that's why, if this is the end of Nimrod, I'm honestly like not really against it, because he had a good run. It's time to give those other tech characters their, like, you know, their spotlight. And yes, you can still give Nimrod his flowers. Obviously, he did a lot for the tech class. He made a class that was like honestly down in the dumps, and he made it into something that is spectacular. And he like forced a class to go a different direction just to avoid him. That is honestly insane, and that's why like he was regarded as the best tech character for a long time. So yeah, Nimrod can just rest easy now. He isn't as needed as he once was, and he can just, you know, just sit back and relax and not have to be like the forefront of the tech class anymore. It was a great run, obviously, but you know, I think it's just that time. Maybe I'm wrong, maybe he's still just like, you know, insane in 2024, but only time will tell, right? But let me know your thoughts on this video. Who do you want to see, you know, studied next? And yeah, that's about it for me.